Well, listeners, there is an album that I am very, very excited about to come out. It is called Under the Crooked Claw, and it's a brand new album from Bat. And we thought today we want to know a little bit more about this, so let's actually get Ryan on the phone to chat a little bit about this amazing new album. Welcome to the program, mate.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, mate, as a horror fan myself, I have to say I'm pretty excited every time you guys release something. So tell us a little bit about this album. What can our listeners expect from this album? And what did you guys talk about before you started to record it?
Well, if you're a horror fan, we got just a song for you called Horror Vision, where I reel off 21 video nasty movie titles in the lyrics. I fit in as many as I could, mostly the ones that seemed lyrical to me. Maybe not the best ones, but the best ones for the verses and whatnot. So, yeah, that song was an idea I've had for a long time. I think we might even cut a video for it. People that don't know, the Video Nasties were like the band videos in the UK in the early 80s on VHS. And, yeah, I mean, each song's like a little horror story, but that's the most horrific one of them all. You know, I like to create our own lore. First song, vampire lore, just kind of sets the tone for the bat entering the room, and we're just trying to kick your ass right when we get in there.
So I've got to ask, where did your love for horror come from? Of course, apart from doing this show, I also host a film and pop culture show, so it's something I'm interested in. So where did your love for horror begin?
Well, I mean, you know, I grew up going to video stores, you know, that was like the hot new thing in the 80s when I was growing up. And of course I, you know, had an older brother and we were able to sneak, you know, some stuff we probably weren't allowed or weren't legally allowed to watch when we were kids. So it had a great effect on me, you know, and you felt like you were doing something dangerous. And I still like that element. You know, I wrote a film with my partner, Norman Cabrera, who's like an effects guy out in LA. And he always had this quote that I thought was interesting. It's like, you know, that FBI warning that comes at the beginning of a VHS tape. You already feel like you're doing something wrong, like you're breaking the law. And that resonated with me, too. It's like, oh, you know, you watch your back, you know, if you tape this video, you could get put behind bars, you know. So it's just a cool culture that, you know, if you look, I don't know if this is not on video, but behind me is a room full of VHS that surrounds the whole perimeter of my room, and you know, masks and everything. So I'm just obsessed, man. I so much that I wrote a film myself, you know, hopefully that'll see the light of day.
Definitely. So what kind of horror do you like? Like I notice that the people out there these days are particularly, there's different kinds of horror. Like they'll like the supernatural kind of horror, like The Conjuring, but they won't like a slasher or anything like that. Are you kind of like me where any horror is go-to? Yeah.
No, you know, it's just like music. You know, you break shit down into so many subgenres where you can't keep it straight. You know, a good movie is a good movie. And I make a point not to knock anything either, because, you know, writing this film, I know how much work goes into it. No matter if you like it or don't, like, don't just shit on someone's movie, because you got to realize how much work went into that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm prone to like the 70s and 80s stuff more because I grew up on it. And I one thing I did with my movie, I didn't put any cell phones in the movie because I'm so sick of people being on their phones. So there's not one cell phone in the film. I'm sitting here talking about what I don't like. So let's move on to what I do like. So, I mean, I love when there's a heavy metal band in a movie. So there's about 10, 20 movies that I could reel off that are like that. So that's basically, I wanted to do a film that was all that had heavy metal and horror the whole time. So my film's more based around that, because that's the two worlds colliding is what gets me excited.
Tell us a little bit about your film. First of all, what is it called, and is there a chance we're going to get to see it in the light of day?
Well, let's hope there is.
Yeah.
I did release the title, so I can tell you that it's called Exit Stage Death.
Okay.
And I've been sitting on that for a while, but I'm putting it out in the world. So if you see that someone's using that title, tell me, I'll go kick their ass, because I time-stamped it already and I submitted it. So I don't give away the plot, especially not on the radio, just because I'm worried about people jacking my ideas. But just know that it's heavy metal and horror, and it's going to be done independently. I don't want to hand this idea off to somebody, so I want to see it through to the end. We just need some money.
Yeah. So, Ryan, bringing it back to Under the Crooked Claw, tell us a little bit about this album. You mentioned before about Horror Vision as a single, but what did you guys actually talk about before heading into work on this album? Did you have an idea in mind what you wanted with this album?
It's bands like us don't do that. We don't go, okay, here's what we're gonna do. You just get in the room and start writing. That's just how Bat has always been. And Waste too, same thing. We did kind of fill in the blanks with what kind of songs we wanted, though. I mean, with Bat, it's really fun because we could kind of go in a few different directions. And the first stuff we were writing for the record was sounding really punk and raw. So we kind of started going, all right, let's heavy it up a bit for just to balance it out. And we were all in a room during the pandemic just writing as a three-piece, and it was really one of the only things that got us through such a tough time. I mean, I was writing the film, too, via Zoom meetings. So, with the world stopping, we had time to work on it, and Bat had never had that amount of time to work on stuff. We'd always be busy on tour with our other bands, and, just everything slowing down let us write. And it's exciting to finally have this thing see the light of day. I mean, shit's like 2 or 3 years old to us at this point. And it's cool just to have people hear it, man. This week has been amazing, just getting feedback from people like yourself.
I found one of the really interesting things about this one was, do you remember those novels that used to come out in the 70s and the 80s, and they would be a collection of short horror stories? This album felt like one of those novels for me.
That's exactly what I was going for. That's amazing. Yeah. That's a great way to put it. And I wanted to have the cover be like an old Italian, like pulp comic kind of feel too. So kind of everything matched around that aesthetic for sure.
So you're a pretty creative guy, of course, with screenwriting and songwriting and things like that. Tell us a little bit, how do those ideas come to you? Like when you're sitting down to work on a track, how do those ideas come to you?
It's all different, I mean, a lot of it, we were in the room writing, and I was so excited I would go home and write the song that night. But a lot of the titles I would have, like I'm sitting on in advance, I would have titles ahead of time. Sometimes I'd write lyrics ahead of time, and then we'd formulate it around the music once the music was written. So I like to not approach it all the same way. That way it doesn't sound samey. So one thing that's always, for some reason, worked for me is when I'm on a plane, I like writing lyrics because there's not much to do up there. It's a weird thing that I've actually written a lot of lyrics on a plane ride.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the altitude.
I read a quote that you made about this album as well, where you said you really wanted to push those boundaries between heavy metal, punk, and rock and roll. Tell us a little bit about that. What kind of boundaries did you want to push there?
Well, it goes back to labeling bands and over genre, making subgenres and labeling what bands sound like. I like to be a band that just accepted on all levels, from punk to metal to rock and roll, hard rock. The best example is Motorhead. It's like one of those bands. It's like you can't put your finger on what it is, and they just say it's rock and roll. I mean, it should just be as simple as that. I've also mentioned a band like the Brats, which was like a Danish band before Merciful Fate. It's got all those elements in it: heavy metal, punk rock, rock and roll. And just works together. So I think it'd be cool if Bat fell in a category like that.
Yeah. You mentioned before about having extra time to work on this album because of what was going on in the world, and you guys are all together now as well. How did that change things for you guys? Like, did it feel less rushed? Was it just easier to get together and work together? How did that help you guys?
It was definitely less rushed. I mean, that was the best part about it. I mean, it wasn't a fun time. I mean, I think we were all angry at the time too, and unsure. And I think that actually boosted the creativity too. That was a positive outlet to take out our aggression, in 2019, 2020, 2021. And it was, we didn't know what was going to happen, but we knew we had the time, and let's make the use of it. And we never had time before. I mean, I'm always on the road, and it's really, I think I should start taking more time off to write and make records. I think it's important. because I mean, this is the stuff that is immortalized.
Yeah.
You know,
You mentioned that you've been sitting on this for about 2 or 3 years, these tracks. How do you feel now that your fans are finally going to be able to get to hear them?
that's the most exciting part about it. I mean, we just got the records ourselves. I mean, it's just as exciting for us to open up a box and see the album for the first time. So, I mean, you get a sneak peek, you know, no one else has heard it until a week. So we got another week, but, you know, people can still pre-order it depending when this interview comes out. I mean, I just want everyone to hear it. You know, you can listen to music so easily now, so it's going to be everywhere.
Is that the most frustrating time that you have as an artist? That time between when you've recorded the tracks and the album coming out? Is there a more frustrating time?
It is, you know, when I could talk about how shit gets held up, pressing plants and label stuff and artwork, but you know, no one thinks about that. But everyone wants everything so instantly now, and I do everything the old-fashioned way. You know, we record it, you can't hear it till it's out, and that's just how it goes. But man, if it didn't take even longer than I thought, and it was getting a little frustrating, but right now I'm happy because I know next week it'll be everywhere.
So what are your plans now as a band? Are you hoping to get out there and do some shows after the launch of the album? What are the plans going forward?
Yeah, we got a whole U.S. tour booked, you know, the week after it comes out. We're going out in the end of May with Necrot, which is our friends from Oakland, California. They're a killer death metal band that actually was just out with The Waste, and I've known Sonny, you know, the guitar player, for like 25 years. So we're going out with another 3-piece that kicks ass, and we know it's going to be a killer tour. Different styles of music that should somehow work together, you know. And I think we want to come to Australia eventually. We just did a South American tour with Exciter, and we were talking to them. They had never been to Australia, so I was like, hey, man, let's do it again together. We got along great. 2-3 pieces again, bring it over to Australia. So you might see us over there if we can work it out.
That would be awesome. I was actually thinking the other day, you guys would be awesome to come out here for Monster Fest, which is the big horror film festival that we have out here in Australia. It goes
we would be psyched.
Yeah, because like they have big name people come across and interesting people. The company that puts it together are true horror fans, so they've had people like the Soska twins come out to it before. Yeah, it would be absolutely amazing for you guys to come out at that time and do some shows while that was on. So, yeah.
Hey, well, put in a good word for us, man. Send them the record or show, you know, because we have a bat, you know, character too. We could bring the bat over there for the festival, you know.
Definitely.
And what time of year does that happen?
It's normally around October. Yep.
Okay. Well, I'll be in Europe with Waste and Cannibal Corpse this October, but maybe we'll get the next one.
Yeah, definitely.
Best month.
I wanted to talk to you
too.
Well, we've got a little bit of time. I wanted to talk to you about some of the ideas behind tracks, because Right for Exorcism, the story in that track feels like it would be perfect to turn into a movie. Would you guys ever entertain turning any of these tracks, storylines, into movies or short films?
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that, because that title was inspired by the movie Exorcist 3.
Yeah.
Which I think is a very underrated film, great film. You know, the book it says Right for Exorcism in the book on that, and I was like, I put that title in my back pocket from a movie already. So I probably wouldn't do an Exorcist movie. I think and of course 3 of them come out. You know, we had written the song 4 years ago, then 3 movies come out. Reboots of The Exorcist come out in the meantime, but we did, you know, I look at the video that Norman Cabrera did, Right for Exorcism video, as a short film in itself, because, you know, it's very cinematic the way we did it. So I think that's enough for that song. Oddly enough, you know, I told you about my film Exit Stage Death. The song Electric Warning is actually based on some plot points from that movie. So that's a little tidbit you can read into if you read the lyrics for Electric Warning. That's actually from based upon some ideas from my film Exit Stage Death. But yeah, like Horror Vision, we want to put a video out, but I mean those are already movies too. I feel like, you know, you could turn vampire lore into a film. That would be cool. You know, you could do it for a lot of stuff, man. I think they're all should be short films in their own right.
Yeah, a lot of bands are doing graphic novels these days as well. We actually did a segment on our show a couple of weeks ago where we were looking at graphic novels that have been put together by bands as well. Like, your work would be perfect in that realm as well.
I would love to see, artistically drawn as well. That'd be amazing. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you got a lot of work to do. We need to get on this Monster Fest and this novel going now. I thought I was already ahead of the game.
Definitely. Well, mate, I know we are running out of time very quickly, so I guess to finish off, what would you like to say to your Aussie fans out there before they get a chance to take a listen to this album over the next couple of weeks?
I would say give it a listen and then write your local rock promoter and get us over there, because we want to tour on this record. And I might even bring Exciter with us. So let's get that going. Let's get over to Australia.